Hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday. I hope that you guys are having a beautiful week. If you're in the US, I hope you had some great time with your family. If you're anywhere in the world, I hope you had some great time with your family yesterday. And thank you for taking the time to press play on today's video. As you can probably tell, my voice is gone. It's way better than it was on Monday. I went to my first concert, actual festival, concert and festival, whatever, since COVID. This past Sunday, I went to Corona Capital. It was incredible. The US can learn a lot from the way that Mexico put on this festival. I personally think it was the best festival I've ever been to. And also it was like about the music and having a good time and not like a freaking fashion show. And it was wonderful. I'm so grateful that I had the opportunity to go. I saw Amber Mark, I saw Miramasa, I saw Phoebe Bridgers, amazing. I saw Lil Nas X and I saw Miley Cyrus. Lil Nas X, he is a performer. I would say that's like one of the best performances I've ever seen in my life. The dancing, the production, the storytelling, his actual performing, singing, rapping, talk. It was just so good. If you ever have the chance to see him live, please take it. He was incredible. All of that being said, I'm glad that I have somewhat of a voice so that I can stick to my schedule. I wanted to do an updated 5 things people should know before they move to Mexico, and specifically Mexico City video. I think a lot of people found this last video I did almost a year ago, or more than that, over a year ago, super helpful. So I wanted to redo it with some new things that I've learned and I think would be helpful to know if you decide to move here or spend a significant amount of time here. So without further ado, let's get into this video. The first tip I would like to share if you're planning to move to Mexico or spend an extended amount of time here is just to be conscious of the space you're taking up. Be conscious of the way you're talking about Mexico. Think about how you can make this place a better place with your presence. I think something I see a lot of that sometimes, really all the time, it upsets me. And I see it here, I've seen it in Tulum. It's typically people from the US, but do not come to this city, to this country and act a fool, just because you're in a new place. Does not mean that you can't act like you have some sense. Be respectful when you're here. Treat the people that you meet with respect. And I don't even feel like I should have to say this, but I am. Be kind, be respectful, be patient. All of the courtesies you would give your family or your friends or people from your home country, give the people of Mexico that same respect. And when I say be conscious of the space you're taking up, I think a lot of people forget that they're visitors, no matter how long you've been here, and can kind of just be, really aggressive and sometimes obnoxious in this place. And it's just be aware of the space you're taking up and how much space you're taking up. You don't want to stomp over and live on top of the people who are from here. You want to embrace them and make sure they have their space and just be respectful as possible. And another thing that I see people do a lot, and I think people are becoming more conscious of it, but just saying oh my God, Mexico is so this or that. Maybe Mexico is more affordable for you because of the currency of where you're from or the amount of money you're making where you're from. But it's not that way for everyone. Mexico City is probably the most expensive city in Mexico. And if you have the privilege of making, money from another place and bringing it here, that is a privilege, and just be aware of that. Because it's just calling Mexico cheap or Mexico City cheap. It isn't the case for everyone who lives here, especially now with things getting more expensive. So just be aware of how you're talking about things and how you might make someone else feel with how you're talking about things. I am trying my hardest to have my voice be back. I'm determined to get a video out, so I'm sorry if this is irritating. The second tip for you is, and I learned this when I was living in Playa, and I've made videos on TikTok about this before, but make sure that you tip the person at the grocery store who's helping you bag your groceries. It's typically an older person, a senior citizen, and those tips basically make up their salary. So I think it's really important, if you can, 50 pesos, give them a tip as you are leaving the store, as they're bagging your groceries. It's really, really helpful. And yeah, it's just something that you might not know if you haven't looked into this. I know, like, I tell people this and they are not aware of this, so it makes a big difference. The third thing you should know if you're visiting Mexico or Mexico City, I know in some parts of Mexico, like typically by the beaches, you can go into a pharmacy and basically buy any type of medicine that you want, skin, medication. You can buy it over the counter without a prescription, but that is not the case in Mexico City. You can get like most, I'm pretty sure, like skincare related stuff, like everybody gets their retinol here. You don't need a prescription for that, but for oral antibiotics and medications, you do need a prescription. So if you're coming here thinking that you're about to stock up on all your medicine, that might not be the case. For something like small, like a UTI, or maybe you have like, you might think you have strep. What I do is I go to a pharmacy called San Pablo. For most of them, they have clinics in the front, and you can walk in, you don't need an appointment, and they can examine you and write you a prescription for what you need. Like, I had a UTI, my first UTI ever, and I went and I didn't know this. I thought that I could just walk into the San Pablo and get a prescription because I was living in Playa and you can get anything you need. But they're like, no, you actually need a prescription for this medicine. And then they let me know that the clinic was right up front. You can also get like COVID tests there. It's like things that aren't so serious, you can get a prescription there. And then they'll write you the script, you walk right in and you can get the medication there on the spot. For things that are a little more serious, I go to Star Medica. That is where I've taken my friends when they've had like more serious injuries or like sicknesses and they need to see, they need to go to the emergency room. I've also heard that the ABC hospitals are good here. I've never been to one, so I can't speak on them, but I know Star Medica has been great. I've taken two friends 2 separate times. They were seen super quickly in the emergency room and got the help they needed. You have to like give a deposit for your care, and then if what you need is like less than that, you'll get the money back. The fourth thing people should know if they're visiting Mexico or Mexico City. Now this is actually for anyone who's traveling. I actually did not know this. I learned this well into my time in Mexico City, but when you go to an ATM and you put your bank card from your home country into the ATM and they're showing you the conversion and they give you the option to accept conversion or decline conversion, always select decline conversion. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get your money. It just means that the conversion rate is not going to be as marked up as it is on the ATM or within that like financial institution. I was doing some research about this because I learned this, but I didn't ever know why. And typically, if it's done by like Visa, MasterCard, American Express, it'll be like a 1% markup. But at the ATM, sometimes it can be high as 12%. And so if you accept the conversion, you're gonna get the same amount of money, but it's not gonna be for like the best exchange rate, if that makes sense. So always hit decline conversion. And the fifth and final thing I think you should know if you plan to move to Mexico is about the visa process. If you have been following me, you know that a year ago, I got my 1-year temporary resident card. And just last week, I got it renewed for another 3 years. I am so incredibly grateful. And then following this 3 years, I believe I will go for my permanent residency. I think that's the next step, which I'm even more excited about. But 3 years is something to be so grateful for. I talk about this process in another video. I will link it above. I have been working with the same incredible lawyer, now turned friend. His name is Jaime. He has been an absolute godsend. He's helped me both years and has just made this process so smooth and seamless. I'll put his information down below again in case you're looking for a lawyer. I really trust him, and I know that he's helped a lot of you get your visas, so I think he's helped a lot of people who watch my channel as well. My tips for this process would be to, 1, use a lawyer. If you can afford to do this process with a lawyer, you don't have to do it with a lawyer, but if you can afford it, I highly recommend it because there are just so many little steps within the process that you could potentially mess up. And if you're doing this for the first time, like my first year, you have to go to a consulate in the US. I believe, I had to go to a consulate in the US, and I think maybe it depends on where you're from, but I know for sure that I had to go to New Orleans. And if you mess this process up, you have to do that part again. You have to do it all over again, and that's a lot of money if you have to travel to a place. I didn't know anyone in New Orleans. I had to pay for, my flight, obviously, accommodation. It's not something that you want to have to do more than once. So if you can get some help along the way, I highly recommend Jaime or a lawyer that you trust that's familiar with this process. And my second tip and thing I think people should know is, if you don't have your visa yet, or if you don't plan on getting one, be conscious of the time that you're allotted here when you enter the country. Back when I moved here, they were very flexible with giving everybody 180 days. And although that's still, legally, you can still get 180 days, they're not giving everyone 180 days now. You might get 2 weeks. You might get 90 days. You might get 5 days. And I know that they don't do the FMM forms anymore. They write it in your passport. So be aware of how much time they're giving you, because if you think that you have a certain amount of time and you happen to go over, you're gonna have some trouble when you leave. I know that they give you a fine, but it can really impact that process when you're trying to leave the country. My friend missed 2 flights because she didn't realize that she didn't have the amount of time that she was here. And so she got held up at the airport. So just be conscious of the amount of time that you're planning, the amount of time that they give you. And I would say if you are trying to stay here long term, then you should go for the visa process, just so you don't have any issues. There you go. 5 more things I think people should know before they move to Mexico. The last time I made a video like this, it's the most viewed video on my channel, so I'm assuming it was helpful. I hope this one was helpful. And if you like this style of video, I'm more than happy to continue. I just wasn't sure if y'all were tired of the tips type of content, but let me know what you think and leave any tips that you may have down below. I hope that you guys have a fabulous rest of your Friday weekend. Thank you for showing up with me. Thank you for being so patient with me as I struggle to get my words out. And as always, thank you for being here.